the editing of this video is going to be a little sloppy because I use sections of this video for other videos, but here's just a quick summary and introduction to the Heroscape Age of Annihilation all-time format frequently asked questions in Errata version 2.0, last updated June 24th, 2025. This is a very comprehensive rules update and card and wording clarification for the game of Heroscape. I'm going to try to apply most of this to the videos and games that I play at home, but not totally everything, because I'm not playing an organized play, nor do I want my events at home to feel like high-sanctioned tournaments. But hopefully this video provides you with what you need. A description with chapters will come at some time. I'm not sure when that will be, but I will try to get that updated. And also, there will be a link to the page where this document is directly at the end of the video description after the chapters. Hopefully this video provides you some direction or clarification that you seek if you don't have ready access to this document. Today is June 25th, 2025, and Renegade Game Studios just released a document with a big title that I don't usually go for, organized play. However, a lot of these rules and clarifications are useful for casual play as well. If you have the rulebook that comes in the game, that's enough to start playing, but if you want a little further clarification and explanation, or maybe some questions answered about timing and other rules, it'll be in this document, which is available on renegadegamestudios.com in the Heroscape subset category, or just go to heroscape.com and go to organized play, and you'll be able to find this, or on the Discord. Now, this was compiled by the designers from Renegade Game Studios, as well as some prominent community members. That'd be Mike Schober, Adam Tarr, Ken Williams, and Don Zimmerman. Those screen names respectively are Mike, Doc, Matthias Maccabeus, and Skytail. These guys know this game, and they collaborated to get us this document. This is just the first version of it as it's already premiered. The rules team has already made some clarifications to the clarifications, so this will probably be a living document. I'm not sure how much of this will be printed in new rulebooks or if it will be printed at all. I'm not a fan of digital-only files that are constantly changing. I like to have a tactile experience of having a rulebook on the table in front of me that we can pass around, rather than bringing devices to the table to constantly be looking stuff up. But anyway, that's just how I view the game. We will get into this. There will be chapter selection in the description of the video, and when I get to the errata and card clarification section of this video, I will list the figures at the start of those chapters, so that way you can see if the figure you're looking for or want to know about is in this video, because I imagine this document will grow, probably not shrink very often, but it will change as the game's life lengthens. Now, how the video is going to be broken down first is going to start with points updates, and then we will get into general errata for the game. That'll be round structure, activating figures, adjusting figures, destroyed figures, the Laur walls, dice modifiers, and terrain tiles. Then the next section will be rules clarification on things like movement, moving normally, special movement, fitting onto a space, flying, stealth flying, attacks, attacking normally, effects that occur during attacks versus after attacking, leaving engagement attacks, special attacks, attacks against multiple figures, attacks that draw a straight line through multiple figures, clear sight versus line of sight, determining clear sight to a space, determining range and line of sight to a double-spaced figure, attack keywords, explosion, X, line, X being a numerical value, terrain, timing, and victory conditions. Then we'll get into figure errata, card clarifications for figures, and then other frequently asked questions, such as general questions, movement questions, and attack questions. Now, if you're like me, you like a little visual representation to the words being read to you or that you're reading in a rulebook, so that's the only reason I'm making this video, is just for people that learn or play like I do. So first, we'll start with the points updates, and the first figure is going to be Major Q9. This is for competitive play. You can still play casual any way you really want, which is why it's called casual, but he is going from 180 to 250 points. Nilfheim is going from 185 to 240. The Rise of the Valkyrie Master Set Raylin the Curie Warrior is going from 80 to 125 points. The Morrow Warriors are going from 50 to 105 points. Grimnak is going from 120 to 160 points. Sir Gilbert is going from 105 to 160 points. Because he is currently on loan to the Heroscape community for ScapeCon 2025, Here's a digital representation of me Berksaw's army card, which is going from 50 to 70 points. The 4th Massachusetts line is jumping from 70 points to 100 points. The 10th Regiment of Foot is going from 75 to 95 points. And the Death Reavers are going from 40 to 60 points. And now we're going to break down the errata on round structure. It's played over several rounds. A round consists of 3 player turns for each player. During each of your player turns, you will reveal an order marker on your army cards, then move and attack with the figure or figures represented on that army card. Each round of play consists of the following steps. Number 1, place order markers. Number 2, roll for initiative. Number 3, take player turns. And number 4, advance the round marker. These 4 steps are explained in detail in the following section. Number 1, place order markers. During the place order marker step, you must decide which army card you'll use on each of your 3 player turns. Place order markers on those cards, 1 for first turn, 2 for the second, and 3 for the third. You may place 2 or more order markers on the same card if you want to use that card 2 or even all 3 of your turns that round. Then there is the X order marker, which does not have any intrinsic effect. It is a decoy to prevent your opponents from knowing which 3 order markers you actually intend to use. If your army card includes common figures, a single card represents all of that type of figure in your army, no matter how many figures you choose to bring. Each order marker placed on a common army card lets you activate any of your figures that belong to that card, up to the number of figures displayed on the card. Players place their order markers at the same time. Place your order markers with the numbers facing you so your opponents can't see them. Be careful how you place your order markers. Typically, you cannot change them later, and you are committed to using those figures in order during the round. Then, after order markers are placed, number 2, roll for initiative. After placing order markers, each player rolls the 20-sided die for initiative to determine who goes first. The player who rolls the highest result has the initiative and will take the first player turn this town. How about this round? You will take the first player turn this round with the higher roll, in this case 16. Reroll ties. Step 3 is take a player turn. During a round, players alternate taking turns, starting with the player who has the initiative. That player reveals the number 1 order marker on their army card and moves and attacks with the corresponding figure or figures. Then the opposing player will reveal their order number marker 1 and does the same. Play then passes back to the player with initiative, who reveals their 2 order marker and takes another player turn. Play continues this way until each player has revealed their 3 numbered order markers and have taken 3 player turns. A player turn consists of the following steps in order. Number 1, revealing your order marker. Begin your player turn by revealing the next order marker in the sequence and laying it number side up on the army card it was placed on. Then there's moving your figures. You may now move the figures that are shown on that army card beneath the order marker you just revealed. If it is a common army card, you may move a number of figures equal to the number of silhouettes depicted on the card. So, these Obsidian Guards have 3. You may move any 3 of your Obsidian Army Guards. So, we'll say that the player moves these 3 Obsidian Guards. Then, that would be the next step. Attack with figures on your army card. Figures represented by your chosen army card that are within range of an opponent's figure and have a clear line of sight can attack. If no figure army card meets these 2 conditions, you can't attack and your player turn is over. If it is a common army card, you may attack with a number of figures equal to the number of silhouettes depicted on that card. Figures activated by moving this turn do not have to attack, but the total number of activated figures cannot exceed the number pictured on the squad's army card, unless they have a special power that allows them to activate more. And here's how to resolve an attack. For each attacking figure, follow these steps. Number 1, declare the attack. Announce which of your figures is the attacker, whether it is using a normal or special attack, and which figure it is targeting. My Obsidian Guard is targeting Admiral EJ-1M. Then the next step is to roll your attack dice. Making a normal attack, the attacker rolls a number of combat dice equal to the attack value on its army card, adding any extra dice for height advantage, special powers, and glyphs. If making a special attack, the attack cannot be modified by glyphs, other special powers, or height advantage. So, this Obsidian Guard, when he attacks, will add height advantage, which is explained in the main rules. Again, this video is just some clarifications, so I'm not going to be teaching how to play, just going over exactly what's in the document. So going back to our original attack, that would be 3 results. Then you roll defense dice. The defender rolls a number of combat dice equal to the defense value on its army card, adding any extra dice for height advantage, special powers, and glyphs. The defender can roll these extra dice even against a special attack. Then, finally, you compare results. If the attacker rolls more skulls than the defender rolls shields, the attack is successful. For each skull not blocked by a shield, the defender takes 1 wound. If the defender has taken a number of wounds equal to or greater than the life value on the army card, it is destroyed. The player who controls the destroyed figure places it on its army card. Otherwise, place a number of wound markers equal to the wounds taken on this figure's army card, if it is a hero or multi-life squad figure, or near the figure's base, if it is a squad figure. The defending figure remains on the battlefield and the attack ends. Wounds go on the army card if it is a hero, and they go on the battlefield next to the figure if it's a multi-life squad figure. For uncommon heroes, it would go on the army card that represents the hero on the battlefield, which, again, uncommon have some special rules with them. So, defending only 1, Admiral EJ-1M would take 2 wounds. Ouch! Then, at the end, you check your victory conditions. At the end of each player turn, players check the victory conditions for the scenario they are playing. If a player team has achieved victory conditions of the scenario, that player or team is the winner. If multiple players and/or teams have satisfied victory conditions, the game is a draw. Otherwise, the game continues to the next player turn. If there are no more player turns left to resolve, move to the end of the round. Then, that would be end the round. You would then remove all your order markers from your army cards and advance the round marker to the next number on its track. A new round begins, and repeat the previous steps until the game concludes. Activating figures. When a player takes a turn with a common squad, they may activate a number of figures equal to those pictured on the squad's army card. A figure is considered activated once it is chosen to be moved during its turn, even if it moves 0 spaces, or chosen to be an attacker during its turn. When a player attacks with figures from a common squad during their turn, they may attack with a number of figures equal to the number of figures depicted on that squad's army card. Figures activated by moving this turn do not have to attack, but the total number of activated figures cannot exceed the number pictured on the squad's army card, unless they have a special power that allows them to activate more. So, for example, there are 3 Arrowgruts pictured on the Arrowgrut army card. A player controls 3 or more Arrowgrut figures. They will choose to move 2 Gruts during their move figures step of the player turn. They're still able to attack with up to 3 Arrowgruts during Action 3, attack with figures on the army card, which is optional. One of these attacks can come from a Grut that had not moved, thus activating it. The other 2 must come from the 2 previously activated Gruts. We're going to choose this one. He has height advantage. Adjusting your figures. Players can adjust any figures they control at any time during their player turn, including rotating single-space figures. However, players may only flip a double-space figure at any point during that figure's movement, including before and after moving that double-spaced figure. Players cannot move or touch an opponent's figure unless that figure is affected by a game effect that that player controls. For example, when a player uses the Grapple Grab 8 ability on Sergeant Drake Alexander to place an opponent's figure adjacent to Drake, the player using Grapple Grab 8 would then pick up and place their opponent's figure, adjusting it to their liking. Now, why did I show Zenithrax while describing the Sergeant Drake Alexander thing? Again, he is on loan. So here's a different example. The player controlling Iwashia decides to create water underneath an opponent's arrow grut. You can then place it to your liking after you place your tile. After a figure is destroyed, in destroying figures, the text on its army card no longer applies to that figure, unless, for example, the text that references destroyed figures. In this example, Mizerix the Kiri warrior's life drain spirit says that after Mizerix is destroyed, her figure is placed on the army card of a unique warrior hero that follows Revna, imbuing that hero with Mizerix's life drain special power. Because this specifically stipulates that it occurs after the destruction of Mizerix, it continues to function after Mizerix is destroyed. So, Mizerix the Kiri Warrior can go on to Kilkarax the Kiri Warrior. She is killed in battle and placed on the army card. It's also, unless the text is part of a single attack or effect that affects multiple figures. In these cases, the attack or effect will still affect remaining figures. So, if Deathwalker 9000 uses his Explosion special attack to target an adjacent figure and is most likely destroyed by his own attack, other affected figures must still roll defense dice. Or, for example, the game effect has a special duration. Dorum the Bulkhead Brawler's Charge ability is in effect after it's triggered and until the next time his controlling player reveals an order marker, even if Dorum is destroyed in the interim. In contrast to this, Admiral EJ1M's Admiral's Orders ability does not reference destroyed figures and does not have a specified duration, so it ceases to function once Admiral EJ1M is destroyed. Now, it might not have been stated in the rulebook, but Laur walls have a height of 9. And some dice modifiers errata examples. In this one, when a figure is affected by game effects consisting of more than one modifier, combine the total changes from all modifiers, then adjust the game effect accordingly, to a minimum of 0. For this example here, Bokbar-Na is attacking against a non-adjacent Knave of the Silver Scimitar with a base defense value of 2. That is within 4 clear sight spaces of Raylin the Kiri Warrior, the Age of Annihilation Master Set version. The Knave is also within 4 clear sight spaces of its designated captain, in this case Cornelius Breach, the Derelict Prince, triggering its Captain's Way ability. The Knave will roll 1 fewer defense dice due to Bokbar-Na's Intimidate ability, 1 fewer defense die due to Raylin's Terrifying Aura, and 1 additional defense die due to the Captain's Way. This effect combines, and the Knave will roll 1 fewer defense die against Bokbar-Na's attack. Some game effects specify a dice limit, like Reediarius, here I am, and his Net Trip 14, which limits the defender to a single defense die. These limits are applied after all other modifiers. Non-initiative D20 rolls are capped at 1 and 20. If a non-initiative D20 roll is modified below 1, it becomes a 1. If a non-initiative D20 roll is modified above a 20, it becomes a 20. If skulls or shields are added to a dice roll, those results are still counted as having been rolled. Regarding terrain tiles, in order for a terrain tile to have an effect on the game, at least part of it must be visible to the players. Terrain tiles that are completely covered by other tiles, such as that they are not visible from any angle, have no effect. For example, Iwashia, Master of Tides, cannot use water tiles that are not visible to the players to activate her Twister Power special attack, even if those tiles are on the map. However, Iwashia can use water tiles that are not visible to her, so long as at least part of the tile is visible to all players. Now, there's water under here to support these tiles, but nobody would know that. There's no way to see it. So no, Iwashia cannot use that. Now to get into some rules clarifications. The rules remain the same, but they have been clarified. Powers that refer to before moving and after moving refer to moving as part of that figure's activation during a turn. These abilities do not apply to movement granted from other effects. For example, we'll say Dorum the Bulkhead Brawler takes this Glyph of Quillavon, so if a Frostclaw Paladin is moved by the Glyph of Quillavon, it may not use the Run special power. Moving normally. Moving normally refers to movement during that figure's activation during its turn without the use of a special power. Now here's an example that was already errated again this morning. Flying does not negate moving normally. You're moving normally even though the special power flying is being used. So, moving normally is during that figure's activation, whereas powers that would move that figure don't count as moving normally from, I would say, another figure. Special movement is some special powers and attacks provide figures with unique ways to move. such as the movement provided by Admiral EJ-1M's boarding party special attack. These special movements obey the following rules. Special movements cannot be modified by any game effect except for their own text or text that specifically references a special movement, such as Master Win Chiu Wu affecting other monks' stealth leap. Regarding fitting onto a space, figures do not need to check to see if they fit on each space as they move, they just need to fit on the space or spaces of their final position. When attempting to fit a figure onto a space, there are some exceptions to the normal state of play. At the end of its move, a double space figure can be placed on two spaces even if its base does not lie entirely flat, provided those spaces are on the same level and the game element preventing it from lying flat is a glyph or terrain tile placed on top of one of those spaces. So for example here, a water tile placed by Awashia, Master of Tides, creates water ability, does not add height, but can prevent a double space figure from lying perfectly flat. In this case, the Fen Hydra could still be placed. Opposing miniatures can prevent a figure from being placed on a space if the sculpt protrudes onto that space, even if that space is otherwise empty. For example, if Zenithrax's tail overlaps a space such as that figure cannot be placed fully and flatly on that space, the figure cannot be placed. However, players may not intentionally position a figure's sculpt to prevent other figures from occupying spaces adjacent to them. If a player wishes to move a figure onto a space adjacent to a figure and that space is blocked by a portion of that figure, both players must turn, lift, or flip the involved figures until both figures can fit if possible. A double space figure that has been flipped in this way may be flipped into its original orientation, temporarily displacing adjacent figures before the attack step of its turn, and then must be flipped back to fit at the end of its turn. So these Morrow Stingers would have to, be moved to make room, thereby stopping that space from being denied. Now, originally this was a problem for Major Q9. Couldn't fit through this door, but with the new movement rules, a figure cannot move through an arch, overhang, or door similar terrain feature if the figure's height exceeds the gap, the height differential between the space's height and the figure's and the terrain feature's level. If the overhanging feature spans multiple spaces, a figure's height cannot exceed the smallest gap it's moving through. For example, here, the castle door from the Fortress of the Archcarry has an 8 height gap. The Laur wall archway, not visibly picturable because it's not out till October 2025, has a 7 height gap. So, Major Q9, being height 7, can now fit through the castle door when moving, wreaking havoc upon those inside. The rules for flying and moving are complex, and they've been omitted from many army cards now because of space limitations. But they are as following. A figure with flying may choose to fly at any point during its movement. When the figure chooses to fly, it will immediately take any leaving engagement attacks. While the figure is flying, it ignores all elevations and is not considered to occupy any space that it passes over. This means that it is not going to be engaged with any figures, nor would it be adjacent to them by flying over. It may pass over any figures, even those that would normally disallow other figures from entering that space. It ignores all terrain effects, such as water. It may pass over any space occupied by any terrain, such as a tree or bush, or fly up these walls. It ignores the effects of all glyphs that it passes over. That includes making it so it does not have to stop in a space with a power glyph. It is not affected by any special powers that require adjacency or clear sight or line of sight. For example, a flying figure is not affected by Cyberclaw from the Gladiatrons or Engagement Strike. Figures with the flying special power can ascend overhangs but not pass through the bottom of them, and it does not take falling damage. Again, that is while it is flying. So, no Cyberclaw while flying. Figures with stealth flying have all of the same benefits as a figure with flying, except that it does not take any leaving engagement attacks when it starts to fly. And now to go over clarifications on many things regarding attacking. First off, attacking normally. Attacking normally refers to a normal attack performed during that figure's activation during its turn. Effects that occur during attacks versus after attacking. Game effects that occur during an attack happen before the effects that occur after an attack. These are two distinct timing windows. Effects that happen after attacking are preceded by the phrase after attacking or after making an attack. Leaving engagement attacks. Leaving engagement attacks obey the following rules. Despite its name, a leaving engagement attack is not an attack. It cannot be modified by any game effect except an effect that specifically modifies leaving engagement attacks. Game effects triggered by attacks that are triggered by normal and special attacks, but not leaving engagement attacks. A leaving engagement attack occurs as soon as a player declares that their figure is attempting to move onto a space that is no longer adjacent to an opponent's figure, and their opponent declares a leaving engagement attack. After the leaving engagement attack is performed, if the figure is not destroyed and can still move onto the space it wished to move onto, it continues its movement as normal. If destroyed, any game effect triggered by that destruction will occur in its original space, not the space it was attempting to move into. Special attacks obey the following rules. Special attacks cannot be modified by any game effect except for their own text. Some special attacks can affect multiple figures simultaneously with a single roll of the attack dice. These attacks obey the following rules. If the attack targets a single figure but affects adjacent figures, the attacker needs line of sight only to the targeted figure. For example here, we will say that Killian Vane III targets the enemy figure in line of sight with his blunderbuss special attack. If there is another enemy figure adjacent to the target behind a wall and not in line of sight, that figure is still affected by the attack. Some attacks, like Line X, X being a numerical value attacks, and Molten Claw's Burning Breath special attack specify that line of sight is required for all affected figures. So here, he targets Queen Kyrion, but a ninja of the Northern Wind is adjacent and behind the wall, but Killian Vane III can't see him. Still affected, though. And here is Molten Claw's example where it says, choose a figure to attack. You may also choose 4 spaces in a straight line from the targeted figure. All figures on those spaces that are within line of sight of Molten Claw are affected by Burning Breath special attack. If an engaged figure uses a special attack that affects multiple figures, it must target a figure it is engaged with. Figures it is not engaged with may still be affected. For example, if Killian Vane III uses Blunderbuss special attack while engaged, he must target a figure he's engaged with. All figures adjacent to the target are also affected, except for Killian, because his card says he cannot be affected by his own Blunderbuss, even if they are not engaged with Killian. So, the Fen Hydra, if he targets Queen Kyrion, would be affected. When an attack affects multiple figures simultaneously, any figure that was targeted rolls defense dice first. Then, the attacking player chooses the order in which other affected figures roll defense dice. Attacks that draw a straight line through multiple figures. Some special attacks, such as Twister special attack used by Awashia, Master of Tides, require players to draw a straight line from the initial target a certain number of spaces, affecting each figure in those spaces. Affected figures roll defense dice separately, starting with the initially targeted figure and proceeding along the line in sequence until all figures have made their defense rolls. Other special attacks, such as Decker the Burrow Breaker's Drill Drive special attack, trace a straight line through other figures as attacking figure moves across that line. In these cases, affected figures roll defense dice separately, starting with the figure that was the closest to the moving attacker when it begins its movement. So Decker going this way, he has 5 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He would hit Awashia first, Queen Kyrion, and then the Fen Hydra before finishing his Drill Drive. And the Burning Breath special attack has range 4. Range is determined by the minimum number of spaces from one figure to another figure, counting range to the closest hex. Clear sight versus line of sight. To have clear sight to a figure, you must be able to see any part of that figure from measuring from the figure's target point. Line of sight is a subset of clear sight. To have line of sight to a figure, you must be able to see the hit zone of the figure from measuring from the target figure's point. I think I read that wrong. You must be able to see the hit zone of the figure from the measuring figure's target point. There we go. So Iwashia would be able to see Molten Claw here because his wing is targetable. You have clear sight to a space if you have clear sight to a figure that occupies that space. If there is no figure on that space, place a wound marker in the middle of that space. If you have clear sight to the wound marker, you may have clear sight to the space. Remove the wound marker after determining clear sight. Determining range and line of sight to a double-spaced figure. When determining range to a double-spaced figure, use the closest part of its base. For example, a Great Bow Archer is targeting Queen Maladrix. The front half of her base is 6 spaces away, while the back half is 7 spaces away. Queen Maladrix is at range 6 of the Great Bow Archer. Again, can't picture that because the Great Bow Archers aren't out yet. However, it is possible to have a range to the front half of a double-spaced figure, but not for line of sight to be obstructed. It is possible to have range to the front half of a double-spaced figure, but for line of sight to be obstructed to the point of the front half of that figure's base is off a cliff or obstacle. As long as line of sight can be drawn to another part of the figure's hit zone, it counts as being in range on the front half and within line of sight. So here, Bakhbarna could not see the Dumatev guard in the front half, which is in range, but it can see the back half. So for determining the front part, you would go up and see that he can see that, and that would put that within range 5. And just so you can see an example with more walls built, that is in the document itself. Like flying, some attacks will become keywords. Some special attacks contain keywords in their subheader. These keywords stand in for rules that are often too wordy to easily fit on a card. The rules for these keywords can be found here in the document. But those are things like Explosion Special Attack or Explosion X. A special attack with Explosion X in the subheader requires that line of sight only to the initial target of the attack, but all figures within X spaces of the initial target, friendly and enemy, are also affected. For an example, on Explosion 1 special attack affects the initial target and all figures within 1 space of that target. An Explosion 2 special attack is applied to the initial target and all figures within 2 spaces of that target. After a figure is chosen as the initial target, the attacker rolls dice equal to the value of the attack once for all figures affected by the attack. Affected figures can roll defense dice separately, starting with the initial target of the attack and then proceeding in an order of the attacker's choice. Note, the attacking figure can be affected by its own attack. If the attacking figure is destroyed during an explosion attack, all affected figures must still defend. Line attacks will also be changing to a numerical value like line X. A special attack with line X in the subheader follows a unique resolution sequence. To resolve a line X attack, choose a number of spaces equal to the X value in a straight line, beginning with a space adjacent to the attacking figure. All figures on those spaces who are in line of sight are affected by the line attack regardless of elevation. Roll the attack dice equal to the value of the attack once for all figures affected by the attack. Affected figures roll defense dice separately, starting with the figure closest to the attacker and proceeding along the line in sequence until all figures have made their defense rolls. A special note, if a figure uses a line attack into an overhang, it affects all the figures on all levels in the line of the attack, as long as the attacking figure has line of sight to those figures. And here's a visual example of that. In this case, the attacker chooses the order in which those attacks are resolved. So, the Omnicron repulsors here and Deathwalker would both be affected. The attacker would choose which of these start that line as it goes back. Regarding placing terrain. Certain game effects can place terrain beneath figures or glyphs that are already on the battlefield if it fits normally. Fitting normally means that the terrain can be placed on the space according to the normal rules for Heroscape terrain. Figures and glyphs do not prevent a tile from fitting normally, so Iwashia could place water underneath this glyph of Kelda. If molten lava is placed under a glyph, the glyph is removed. That would happen with the sweet, sweet molten crustaceans. And, also not pictured here because they come out July 21st, 2025, the molten crustaceans. If molten lava is placed under a figure, that figure must roll to see whether it is destroyed. However, I don't foresee a situation where a molten crustacean is somehow underneath another figure, so the molten lava thing is probably not going to come up. Now, I know these are hardly a lot of really great visual examples, and I'm basically just reading the rulebook with a static picture for you to see over it. But now we're going to talk about timing. Simultaneous effects. Resolve one effect at a time. After one given effect is resolved, other effects can only resolve if their conditions are still met. If one player has multiple effects they control that are applied at the same time, they choose which to resolve first. Effects in a given time window that take effect immediately are resolved before any effects that do not say immediately. Effects that require moving out of a timing window, example, powers whose effect involves taking a turn with a card, or an effect that causes you to repeat the move or attack actions, cannot be resolved until all other effects that could be applied in that timing window are resolved. For example, Queen Maledrix the Conqueror is adjacent to 2 Death Reavers. She attacks one Death Reaver, and we'll say she destroys it. Queen Maledrix has double attack, which allows her to make an additional normal attack after attacking. However, the above rule supersedes that additional attack, allowing the Death Reaver's player to move up to 2 Death Reavers before Maledrix makes her second attack. If multiple effects could resolve at the same time, first resolve an effect caused by terrain or core mechanics. That'd be lava damage, falling damage, etc. For example, at the end of a round, a player has 1 Exile of the Sundered Sea on a lava field and 1 Exile on the Glyph of Wanok. Because the lava field is a terrain mechanic, that player must first roll for lava field damage, then roll for the Glyph of Wanok. Reading comprehension, people, it says lava field. That's molten lava. But, haha! There is one on the lava field, so that still applies. And because we just went over how terrain and core rules apply first, the molten lava dude would have already made his roll because he would have moved on to it, because I don't know how else he would have been there otherwise. So we'll say he rolled a 20, and he's fine for now. But the lava field is where you roll to see if he takes the damage. He's fine. Once there are no terrain or core effects to be resolved, first resolve effects controlled by the player who controls the card that is taking a turn. If it's not during a card turn, then first resolve an effect controlled by the player taking a turn. If there are remaining effects controlled by different players who have not taken a turn and or effects that are not controlled by any player, roll a 20-sided die for each effect and resolve one with the highest result first. And regarding victory conditions, unless otherwise specified by the victory condition itself, victory conditions are checked at the end of each player turn, not round. Now we're going to go over some of the card errata. The errata, as it currently is, on June 25th, 2025, is listed alphabetically. You will see army cards digitally that are either not out yet or ones that I have on loan to ScapeCon currently, and I will go over each change in those. This segment is going to be part of 2 videos. It'll be part of the organized play video that I'm creating now, but I will also separate it and have it in an errata video. So you're going to hear this same sentence at least twice if you watch both of them, but one of them will just be for the errata and for the clarifications on cards, and then those 2 segments will also be in this larger video. So I'm not going to have chapter breakdowns, I think, for each figure, but I will list them all here so you can kind of watch and look for the figure that you want. I might add them later, but as of right now, the figures are going to be Akalar, Agent Skahen, the Airborne Elite, the Anubian Wolves, Atlaga, the Kiri Warrior, the Blastotrons, Brandis Sky Hunter, Brave Arrow, Chadris, Charos, or Karos, or Cadris, however you want to pronounce those last 2, Crixus, Death Reavers, Death Chasers of Thesk, Death Knights of Valkyrie, Deathwalker 9000, Dreadnoughts of Caraway Cavern, Dund, Estivara, Fire Elemental, Gerushia Grove Keeper, Glenerva the Kiri Warrior, Greenscale Warriors, Grimnack, Gure Oni, Horned Skull Brutes, Ice Troll Berserker, Izumi Samurai, Johnny Shotgun Sullivan, Keiman Awa, Kato Katsuro, that's probably a butchered pronunciation, Kato Katsuro, Kimoshi, Knaves of the Silver Scimitar, Kozuke Samurai, Krakenling, Loviatak, the Kiri Warrior, McDurk Warriors, Marden Hounds, Marden Nagrubs, Maro Drones, Maro Hive, Master of the Hunt, Microcore Agents, Meagle Iron Will, Mimring, Minions of Utgar, Mohican River Tribe, Omnicron Snipers, Othkirik the Black Dragon, Parmenio, or Parmenio, whatever you want to say, Parmesan, Peloth, Protectors of Ular, Rogar Dragonspine, Roman Legionnaires, Sharwin Wildborn, Sentinels of Jandar, Siege, Sir Dupuis, Shades of Bleakwood, Shiori, the Age of Annihilation promo, Shurak, Sonlin, Swarm of the Morrow version, Sujoa, Swag Rider, Taylord the Kiri Warrior, Tagawa Samurai, Tagawa Samurai Archers, Tandros Creel, Templar Cavalry, Turin, Ulganesh, Zenithrax the Vine Weaver, Giamara the Kiri Warrior, and Zetacron. Now I will go over each of the errata changes. There will be chapters broken down in the actual errata video, but there will not be chapters for each individual character in the larger errata file video that I will be uploading. So let's start with number 1, Akalar. The June 25th, 2025 errata for the Heroscape figures in alphabetical order are going to start with number 1, Akalar, who comes in Crest of the Valkyrie. Leaf of the Home Tree aura is now changing. It originally said, when any elf you control within 8 clear sight spaces of Akalar receives enough wounds to be destroyed, you may roll 10 Ular Valkyrie dice before removing the figure. If you roll at least 3 Ular symbols, ignore any wounds that figure just received. Akalar's Leaf of the Home Tree aura does not affect Akalar. So now it would be Leaf of the Home Tree aura. When any elf you control within 8 clear sight spaces of Akalar would take enough wounds to be destroyed, you may roll 10 Ular Valkyrie dice before removing the figure. If you roll at least 3 Ular symbols, ignore any wounds that figure would have taken. Akalar's Leaf of the Home Tree aura does not affect Akalar. Agent Skahen. Cover Fire. When attacking an opponent's figure, if Agent Skahen inflicts 1 or more wounds, you may move 1 tricky figure you control who follows Vidar and is within 8 clear sight spaces of Agent Skahen up to 4 spaces. You cannot use Cover Fire to move Agent Skahen. That is now changed to Cover Fire. After Agent Skahen attacks with a normal attack, if she inflicted 1 or more wounds, you may move 1 tricky figure you control who follows Vidar and is within 8 clear sight spaces of Agent Skahen up to 4 spaces. You cannot use Cover Fire to move Agent Skahen. Airborne Elite. The grenade special attack is actually changing, and rather than reading over what was, I'm just going to go with what is now. The grenade special attack lob has been removed. Now it is range 5, attack 2, explosion 1. The airborne elite may only use grenade special attack once per game. If they do, all attacking airborne elite must use the grenade special attack. If neither the attacking airborne elite nor the targeted figure are under an overhang, no line of sight is needed. Anubian Wolves, they have a change to Unleashed Fury. At the start of an Anubian Wolf's turn, roll the 20-sided die. If you roll a 1, choose an Anubian Wolf you control and destroy it. If you roll any other result, increase the attack value of this card until the end of the Anubian Wolf's turn as follows. If you roll a 2 to 6, add 1 to its attack value. If you roll 12 to 15, add 3 to its attack value. If you roll a 16 to 19, add 4 to its attack value. If you roll a 20, add 8 to its attack value. Atlaga, the Kiri Warrior. And that is going to be, the wings are no longer a hit zone. The wording for Blastatron's homing device is changing. It is now, when attacking a non-adjacent figure, add 1 to that Blastatron's attack value for every Vidar Soulborg you control adjacent to the defending figure. Archer's Glory is getting some word cleanup to now be, after taking a turn with Brandis Skyhunter, if he destroys an opponent's non-adjacent unique hero, you may take another turn with Brandis. Brave Arrow is getting some changes to Concealment 10. Concealment 10 is now, if Brave Arrow is targeted and would take 1 or more wounds from an attacking figure that is not adjacent, roll the 20-sided die. Count the minimum number of spaces between the attacker and Brave Arrow, add this number to your roll. If you roll a 10 or higher, ignore those wounds. Chadris, his Fireball is no longer a hit zone, and Fire Strike special attack is now going to be range 6, attack 2, plus special. When Chadris attacks with Fire Strike special attack, add 1 to Chadris's attack dice for every additional elf wizard you control within 3 clear sight spaces of Chadris, up to a maximum of plus 3 dice. And how I pronounce it, Charos has improved Counter-Strike now instead of Counter-Strike. The improved comes in because it can actually Counter-Strike Samurai. So, improved Counter-Strike is when Charos successfully defends against a normal attack from an adjacent attacking figure, the attacking figure takes 1 wound for each excess shield. Normal Counter-Strike cannot affect Samurai. Crixus, 1 shield defense, is changing too. When comparing Crixus's shield results to an attacker's skull results, if there are more skull results than shield results, and at least 1 shield was rolled, Crixus blocks all skulls except for 1. Death Reavers are getting a change to Scatter. After a Death Reaver you control is attacked by an opponent's figure with a normal attack, you may move any 2 Death Reavers you control up to 4 spaces each. Death Chasers of Thesk. This cloak on the cloaked Death Chaser is now a hit zone, but the bandana on this Death Chaser is no longer a hit zone. So again, the flowing cloak is now a hit zone, and the bandana on the other Death Chaser is not a hit zone. So it already has it not as a hit zone, but I guess the part wrapped around his forehead is not a hit zone now? The Death Knights of Valkyrie, their cloaks are now hit zones. Deathwalker 9000 range enhancement is now changing to Soulborg guards you control with a range of 4 or more that are adjacent to Deathwalker 9000, add 2 to their range value. The Dreadnoughts of Caraway Cavern are getting a change to the Captain's Way. It will now be, at the start of the game, choose a unique captain in your army to be the Dreadnoughts of Caraway Cavern's captain for this game. When attacked by a non-adjacent figure, add 1 to the defense value of Dreadnought of Caraway Cavern if their chosen captain is within 4 clear sight spaces. So it changes it to just a blanket defense for all of them if one of them is within 4 clear sight spaces to incidental if the one being attacked is within 4 clear sight spaces. Dund is getting a change to Crippling Gaze. That is now going to be Crippling Gaze. At the start of Dund's turn, you may choose a figure within 5 clear sight spaces of Dund. Roll the 20-sided die. If you roll a 15 or higher, remove all order markers on the chosen figure's army card. Estivara is getting a change to Venom Ray Special Attack. It is now going to be range 5, attack 3. If Venom Ray special attack would inflict at least 1 wound, roll a 20-sided die for venom damage. If you roll a 10 to 19, add 1 to the number of wounds inflicted and roll again for venom damage. If you roll a 20, destroy the defending figure. The change to the Fire Elemental is that its target point for the Fire Elemental is now just below the top flame on its head, where the indentations are for its eyes. Normally it's kind of here in the center, but it's actually, this is kind of hard to see with the translucent figure here, it's going to be drawn from these indentations right there by the tip of the flame. That's where its eyes are supposed to be. Garushia Grove Keeper is getting a change to Gift of the Forest. It is now going to be, at the end of a round, if Garushia is within 1 space of a tree or bush, you may remove 1 wound marker from this army card. Because it originally said is next to, but is within 1 space is more proper Heroscape terminology. Glenerva the Curie Warrior is getting a change to Concealment 17. It is now going to read, Concealment 17. If Glenerva is targeted and would take 1 or more wounds from an attacking figure who is not adjacent, you must roll the 20-sided die. Count the minimum number of spaces between the attacker and Glenerva. Add this number to your die roll. If you roll a 17 or higher, ignore those wounds. Green Scale Warriors are getting a change to Loyalty to the Lizard King. It is now going to read, Loyalty to the Lizard King. At the start of the game, choose a unique Lizard Folk hero or unique large or huge dragon in your army to be the Green Scale Warrior's Lizard King. A Green Scale Warrior adds 1 to its attack and defense values while its chosen Lizard King is within 2 clear sight spaces. Grimnack is getting a change to Chomp. It is now going to read, Before attacking, you may choose 1 small or medium figure adjacent to Grimnack. If the chosen figure is a squad figure, destroy it. If the chosen figure is a hero figure, roll the 20-sided die. If you roll a 16 or higher, destroy the chosen hero. Gurei Oni is getting a change to Evil Eye Defense. It's now going to read, Evil Eye Defense. When Gurei Oni successfully defends against a normal attack from a non-adjacent attacking figure, inflict 1 wound on the attacking figure for each excess shield. Hornskull Brutes are getting a change to Expendable Rabble. That will now read, Expendable Rabble. If a Hornskull Brute you control is attacked with a normal attack by an opponent's figure and would receive 1 or more wounds, you may destroy a small goblin figure you control that is adjacent to that Hornskull Brute to ignore those wounds. Ice Troll Berserker is getting a change to where the coverings on him, his loincloth, is now a targetable zone. It's a hit zone. The Azumi Samurai are getting a change to Counterstrike. When an Azumi Samurai successfully defends against a normal attack from an adjacent figure that is not a samurai, the attacking figure takes 1 wound for each excess shield. Johnny Shotgun Sullivan is getting changes to hit zones. His duster is now going to be a hit zone, but the brim of his hat is not. Kei Manawa is getting changed to the wording of Quick Release Special Attack and Counterstrike. His card is going to be Quick Release Special Attack. Kei Manawa may attack up to 2 times with Quick Release Special Attack. And Counterstrike. When Kei Manawa successfully defends against a normal attack from an adjacent figure that is not a samurai, the attacking figure takes 1 wound for each excess shield. Katu Katsuro is getting changes to Katu Katsuro's command. And that is now going to be, after revealing an order marker on Katu Katsuro, instead of taking a turn with him, you may take a turn with one of the following you control. 1 Samurai Hero, 1 Samurai Squad, or 1 Ashiguru Harquebus Squad, and or 1 Ashiguru Yari Squad. You may choose which squad to activate first. Any figure in the above list that is taking a turn instead of Katu Katsuro must be within clear sight of Katu Katsuro before moving. Kimoshi is getting changed to her Toxic Skin. Toxic Skin 17. At the end of Kimoshi's turn, you must roll the 20-sided die once for each figure adjacent to Kimoshi. If you roll a 17 or higher, that figure takes 1 wound. Soulborgs are not affected by Toxic Skin 17. Knaves of the Silver Scimitar, like the Dreadnoughts of Caraway Cavern, are getting a change to the Captain's Way. And that is also going to read as, at the start of the game, choose a unique captain in your army to be the Knaves of the Silver Scimitar's captain for this game. When attacked by a non-adjacent figure, add 1 to the defense value of a knave of the Silver Scimitar if their chosen captain is within 4 clear sight spaces. Kozuki Samurai are getting the cleanup to Counter-Strike and also some wordage to Charging Assault. Charging Assault is going to be before moving with an unengaged Kozuki Samurai, you may add 3 to that Samurai's move value if that Samurai could move adjacent to an enemy figure with the increased move value. If a Samurai uses Charging Assault, it must end its movement adjacent to an enemy figure if possible. And then Counter-Strike gets cleaned up to when Kozuki Samurai successfully defend against a normal attack from an adjacent attacking figure that is not a Samurai. The attacking figure takes 1 wound for each excess shield. The Krakenling is getting some changes to Warp Space and Eldritch Switch. Warp Space is now going to read, instead of moving normally with a Krakenling, you may place the Krakenling on an empty space within 4 spaces. If Krakenling is engaged when it starts to warp space, it will take any leaving engagement attacks. And Eldritch Switch. Eldritch Switch. After moving normally with a Krakenling, that Krakenling may switch spaces with an adjacent single space figure. Figures moved by Eldritch Switch may never take a leaving engagement attack. Loviatak's Deadly Strike is changing. When rolling attack dice with Loviatak, each skull rolled counts for 1 additional skull. Mekdirk warriors are getting a change to Highland Fury. At the start of the game, choose a human champion in your army. While that champion is in play, Mekdirk warriors increase their attack value by 1 for each wound marker on the chosen hero. Mekdirk warriors cannot attack their chosen human champion. Marden Hounds are getting some word cleanup for Wild Pack movement. At the start of Marden Hound's turn, roll the 20-sided die. Increase the move value of this card until the end of Marden Hound's turn as follows. If you roll a 1 to 3, add 1 to its move value. 4 to 6, add 3 to its move value. If you roll a 7 to 20, add 7 to its move value. Marden Nagrubs are getting a change to Hive Lord Life Bonding. Before taking a turn with a Marden Nagrubs, you may first take a turn with any Hive Lord you control. At the start of that Hive Lord's turn, you may destroy 1 adjacent Marden Nagrub you control. If you do, remove 1 wound marker from the chosen Hive Lord's army card. Morrow Drones are getting a change of wording to Hive Swarm. Hive Swarm is, at the start of Morrow Drone's turn, roll the 20-sided die. If you roll a 1 to 12, you may move an attack with up to 3 Morrow Drones you control. If you roll a 13 to 16, you may move an attack with up to 6 Morrow Drones you control. If you roll a 17 to 20, you may move an attack with up to 9 Morrow Drones you control. Morrow Hive. If the Morrow Hive was placed on the battlefield by a player as part of their army, when it is destroyed, remove the hive and its 6-hex swamp water tile base. If the Morrow Hive was placed on the battlefield as directed by a scenario when it is destroyed, remove the Morrow Hive and leave the 6-hex swamp tile base on the battlefield. Master of the Hunt, his skirt is still a hit zone. But he is getting some changes to Mortal Strike. When an opponent's unique hero takes 1 or more wounds from a normal attack from this Master of the Hunt, roll 1 combat die for each wound inflicted in that attack. For each additional skull rolled, the defending figure takes 1 wound. Microcore agents are getting a change to Stealth Armor 15. Stealth Armor 15, when a Microcore agent would take 1 or more wounds, roll the 20-sided die. If you roll a 15 or higher, ignore those wounds. Meagle Iron Will's change in wording is going to come to Deadly Strike and 1 Shield Defense. Deadly Strike is going to be when rolling attack dice with Meagle Iron Will, each skull rolled counts for 1 additional skull, and 1 Shield Defense. When comparing Meagle Iron Will's shield results to an attacker's skull results, if there are more skull results than shield results and at least 1 wound or 1 shield was rolled, Meagle blocks all skulls except for 1. Mimring is getting some minor changes to where he can use his horns as a secondary target point, and also Fireline Special Attack is no longer Range Special Attack 4. It is now going to be Attack 4, Line 8, to line up with the cleaned up wording of Renegade Game Studios. Minions of Udgar getting a change to Deadly Strike. That is now going to be, when rolling attack dice with a minion of Utgar, each skull rolled counts as one additional skull. Mohican River Tribe is getting changes to Concealment 19. That is now going to be Concealment 19. When a Mohican River tribesman you control is targeted by and would take one or more wounds from an attacking figure that is not adjacent, roll a 20-sided die. Count the minimum number of spaces between the attacker and the Mohican River tribesman. Add this number to your die roll. If you roll a 19 or higher, ignore those wounds. Omnicron Sniper's Deadly Shot is now going to read as, when rolling attack dice with an Omnicron Sniper, each skull rolled counts for one additional skull. Othkirek can now use his neck spikes as a secondary target point. Parmenio is getting a change to Disciplined Influence. At the start of the game, you may choose any unique army card in your army. For this game, the chosen card's personality is disciplined regardless of what is listed on the card. And also, Sacred Band Defied Death 15 is going to get 2 words added to it. When an adjacent Sacred Band figure you control would take, that's the change, 1 or more wounds, roll the 20-sided die before removing that figure. If you roll a 15 or higher, ignore those wounds. So instead of receives 1 or more wounds, it's would take 1 or more wounds. Alright, Peloton Bicycles is going to get a change to Lolth's Wrath. Peloth now has Lolth's Wrath. Before attacking with Peloth, you may choose a drow figure you control that is within 5 clear sight spaces of Peloth and roll 3 attack dice. 1 at a time. For each skull rolled, you may inflict 1 wound on any small or medium figure that is within 2 clear sight spaces of the chosen drow figure. You may inflict more than 1 wound on a single figure using Lolth's Wrath. After using Lolth's Wrath, destroy the chosen drow figure. The Protectors of Ular change is their wings are no longer a hit zone. Rogard Dragonspine is getting Dragon Breath Special Attack to now be Dragon Breath Special Attack, Attack 3, Line 3. Roman Legionnaires are getting some cleanup to Shield Wall. That is now going to be Shield Wall. When defending with a Roman Legionnaire, increase that Roman Legionnaire's defense value by 1 for each adjacent Roman Legionnaire you control to a maximum of +2. Ask how, ask now, ask Sherwin-Williams. Alright, Sherwin-Williams has now Arcane Riposte, and that is going to read as, when Sharwin Wildborn successfully defends against a normal attack, inflict 1 wound on the attacking figure for each excess shield. Sentinels of Jandar have a height of 6. The reason that changed is some cards came printed with a medium 5, but 6 is the height. Siege is getting a change to where his cloak is now a hit zone. Sir Dupuis is changing to where his shield is no longer a hit zone. And Tactical Disengagement 7 is getting some cleanup. That is now going to be, if Sir Dupuis would take 1 or more wounds from a leaving engagement attack, roll the 20-sided die. If you roll a 7 or higher, ignore those wounds. Shades of Bleakwood are getting Soul Devour changed to Soul Devour 19. That's now going to read as follows. Soul Devour 19. At the start of Shades of Bleakwood's turn, each Shade of Bleakwood you control may choose an adjacent unique hero. Roll the 20-sided die once for each shade. If you roll a 19 or higher, destroy that Shade of Bleakwood, then take control of the chosen unique hero and remove any order markers on its army card. You now control that army card. Shiori is getting changes to Kiru 14. That is now going to read as Kiru 14. If Shiori is attacked with a normal or special attack and would take 1 or more wounds, roll the 20-sided die. If you roll a 14 or higher, you may place Shiori on an empty space within 2 spaces of Shiori that is not more than 6 levels above or below Shiori's level. If you do, ignore those wounds. I wonder, would she take... No, it's place, it's not move, so she would not take a leaving engagement attack. It's pointless to add this to the video. Shurak is getting Knockback 14 changed to Knockback. After Shurak attacks, you may roll the 20-sided die for each small or medium figure Shurak attacked this turn that was not destroyed by that attack. One at a time. If you roll a 14 or higher, place that figure on an empty space within 3 clear sight spaces of Shurak. The space must be on the same level as or lower than its current location. A figure moved by knockback never takes any leaving engagement attacks. A non-flying figure moved lower by knockback can take any falling damage that may apply. Regarding Sonlin's Dragon Healing, the wording is going to cleaned up and be reflected as Dragon Healing. At the start of Sonlin's turn, you may choose Sonlin or a hero figure within 4 clear sight spaces of Sonlin. Roll a 20-sided die. If you roll a 15 or higher, remove 1 wound marker from the chosen hero's army card. Sujoa is getting some cleanup to Poison Sting Special Attack. That is now going to be Range 1, Attack 4. If Poison Sting Special Attack would inflict at least 1 wound, roll the 20-sided die for poison damage. If you roll a 10 to 19, add 1 to the number of wounds inflicted and roll again for poison damage. If you roll a 20, destroy the defending figure. Swag Rider's Orc Archer enhancement is all friendly Orc Archers add 1 to their attack and defense values for each adjacent Swag Rider you control. Taylord the Kiri Warrior does not have flying. He has stealth flying. When counting spaces for Taylord's movement, ignore elevations. Taylord may fly over water without stopping, pass over figures without becoming engaged, and fly over obstacles such as ruins. When Taylord starts to fly, if he is engaged, he will not take any leaving engagement attacks. Tagawa Samurai, getting some verbiage organization to Counterstrike, which will now be Counterstrike. When Tagawa Samurai successfully defend against a normal attack from an adjacent attacking figure that is not a samurai, the attacking figure takes 1 wound for each excess shield. Tagawa Samurai Archers, also getting some cleanup to Counterstrike. That is going to be Counterstrike. When Tagawa Samurai Archers successfully defend against a normal attack from an adjacent attacking figure that is not a samurai, the attacking figure takes 1 wound for each excess shield. Tandros Creel is getting cleanup to Cleave. That is going to be Cleave, Tandros Creel. When Tandros Creel attacks an adjacent figure before rolling attack dice, you may choose 1 squad figure that is also adjacent to Tandros Creel. If the defending figure takes any wounds from Tandros Creel's attack, the chosen figure takes 1 wound. The Templar Cavalry are supposed to be following Jandar, not the misprinted Einar symbol. I believe many, if not all of them, were printed with an Einar symbol. At least the first drafts were. All of my Templar Cavalry army cards have the Einar symbol, but it is supposed to be Jandar. Tauren is getting some cleanup to Evil Eye Protection. When Tauren or an adjacent friendly small or medium Utgar figure successfully defends against a normal attack from a non-adjacent figure, the attacking figure takes 1 wound for each excess shield. Ulganesh is getting a change to Mind Link. Mind Length will now be Mind Link, not Length. After revealing an order marker on Ulganesh, instead of taking a turn with him, you may take a turn with up to 2 other elf wizards you control. Any elf wizard that is taking a turn instead of Ulganesh must be within 6 clear sight spaces of Ulganesh before moving. Zenithrax the Vine Weaver, she may use her horns as a secondary targeting point. Giamara the Kiri Warrior is getting some cleanup to Amulet of Pavitar. Amulet of Pavitar. When a Kiri you control who follows Ular within 6 clear sight spaces of Giamara the Kiri Warrior would receive 1 or more wounds, you may roll the 20-sided die. If you roll an 8 to 16, ignore all but 1 wound. If you roll a 17 or higher, ignore all wounds. Amulet of the Pavitar does not affect Giamara. And Deadly Shot for Zetacron is getting some cleanup to be Deadly Shot. When rolling attack dice with Zetacron, each skull rolled counts for 1 additional skull. They're changing hit to skull. And that is the card errata for Heroscape as of 6/25/25, June 25th, 2025. And that is mostly just cleanup of how the word flows to match with the terminology of player turns and skulls versus hits and stuff like that. So not too many huge changes to cards, but unreleased figures and old figures all got some sweeping changes. There will probably be more in the future, but as of right now, this is where we are sitting, and those are all the figures that have changed. I've decided to not do what I just did with those with the card clarifications, because most of the card clarifications, which will be upcoming, are going to be just situational, and the document will have the answer you're looking for if that exact situation arises for you. But I will list off the characters that are going to have those card clarifications. It'll not be part of the actual errata breakdown video, but it will be part of the larger fact document and errata document video that is going to have the errata that you just saw for the cards separate. So again, you'll have heard a lot of this stuff twice. This is going to serve as a chapter transition in the main video, as well as an outro for the errata card video. So if you're looking for the card clarifications, that list is going to be in the main video, and it will not be broken down because there's a lot of stuff here, and that would just add like another 20 minutes of situational questions to the video. But I will list each figure in here, so maybe if those questions come up, you will have a spot to look for them, aside from the actual document, which is much easier than fishing through my video when I'm not going to put chapters for each of these questions. Next up, I'm going to list off the army cards that have some frequently asked questions and clarifications in this document. This is not necessarily rules and verb cleanup to get the card flowing or more in line with the rules set as they are now, but this is things like the airborne elite throwing a grenade to a figure under an overhang, or figures passing over air elemental as they're flying, gladiatrons stuck in engagement because of their own cyberclaw, stuff like that. This is stuff I'm just going to list off these figures, so if you have a question regarding any of the figures in this list, this section will be where you find them. They are in alphabetical order, however, the Axe Grinders of Burning Forge are in T because they consider the T and the to be the start of its name, rather than, as some things usually, drop off the and put the first word after that in alphabetical order. Anyway, Axe Grinders are in T. And again, I will show each army card as I have it. If I don't, it is an unreleased figure at this point in time, or it is on loan to ScapeCon 2025 for their draft pool. So, let's get into it. The first one is going to be the 4th Massachusetts line. Agent Skahen, Air Elemental, Airborne Elite, Alistair McDurk, Arkmer, Brandis Skyhunter, Brave Arrow, Brunek, Charos, Cyprian Essenwine, Deathwalker 8000, Decker the Burrow Breaker, Deflectatron, Zute, Iwashia, Master of Tides, Feral Troll, Fen Hydra, Finn the Viking Champion, Fire Elemental, Gelry Vanguard, Gladiatrons, Gerushia Grove Keeper, Granite Guardians, Greater Ice Elemental, Grimnak, Gure Oni, Isamu, Jotun, Kelda the Kiri Warrior, Knaves of the Silver Scimitar, Kozuke Samurai, Major Q9, Major Q10, Major X17, Marden Hounds, Marden Nagrubs, Morrow Dividers, Morrow Drones, Morrow Hive, Morrow Warriors, Microcore Agents, Mika Connor, Mimring, Mizerix the Kiri Warrior, Mohican River Tribe, Molten Crustaceans, Moorsbane, Nikita Agents, Nilfheim, Ninjas of the Northern Wind, Ogre Pulverizer, Omnicron Repulsors, Parmenio, Rechets of Bogdan, Revnan Acolytes, Roman archers, Sacred Band, Saylind the Kiri Warrior, Sergeant Drake Alexander, Rise of the Valkyrie Master Set, Shaolin Monks, Sir Hawthorne, Sonlin, Swarm of the Morrow Master Set, Spartacus, Tagawa Samurai, Tandros Creel, Tanuki Tricksters, Templar Cavalry, the Axe Grinders of Burning Forge, Torkul Na, Turin, Wing Commander Tuck Harrigan, Wolves of Bedru, and the Wyvern. Again, this is just going to be questions that come up in play with these figures that may come up, not necessarily. For example, can a Wyvern talon grab and move a figure that is on a space in which it would land? The answer would be no. The Wyvern needs to land first, then the grabbed figure is moved. So, just some simple clarification on stuff like that. And that is just a general summary of the 6/25/2025 update errata and frequently asked questions document for Heroscape. At the end of the segment, there is also some frequently asked questions that aren't involved around army cards specifically, such as general things like, can you stack water tiles? The answer being no. Things like movement and attacks, like, do you need line of sight when attacking an adjacent figure? No, once you're engaged with the figure, you do not need line of sight to attack that figure. So, you can look over that document. I will put the link at the bottom of the description. Again, it might be a while until I get the chapters and everything organized in there, but that is this document as it is today. This was their June 24th, 2025 version 2.0. I probably will not do another video like this unless there's another huge change like this. This was a pretty comprehensive change, with the design team and members of the community getting this set up like this. So, there you go. Hopefully this helps answer a few questions or provides you the right direction to go see them. The answers to them, not the questions.